Because we're live now. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace Jayagurudeva Prabhu, and all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees. Devotees, we thank you all for being here today as always. And we are very much fortunate. We have one of our dearest uncles, His Grace Jayagurudeva. His name by itself is so purifying, Jayagurudev. So, Prabhuji, you are most welcomed to your own home, Hare Krishna, Africa. And without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and you take it over from here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this Hare Krishna Africa platform Zoom lecturing for inviting me and for having me. And I'm very fortunate that I can be in your association and read from Srila Prabhupada's books. So today's verse is verse number 17 from the chapter 9. The chapter 9 has a title. It is called Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. So I will start by invocation and then read the verse. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Everything okay?
Yeah, I made a mistake. I put the wrong verse on the screen. So I have to correct that.
It's
okay. 3917 and I put 3317.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have to correct that. Yes.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're reading from the third canto, chapter 9, verse 17. The chapter's title is Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. So, now I read the Sanskrit, the translation, synonyms, translation, and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Loko vikarma niratah kushale pramatta karma nyayam tvad udite bhavat archane sve yattavadasya balavani jivita sam sadyaschinatti animishaya namostu tasmai. Synonyms. Loka, people in general. Vikarma, work without sense. Nirataha, engaged in. Kushale, in beneficial activity. Pramatta, negligent. Karmani, in activity. Ayam, this. Tvat, by you. Udite, enunciated. Bhavat, of you. Archane, in worship. Sve, their own. Yaha, who. Tavat, as long as. Asya, of the people in general. Balavan, very strong. Iha, this. Jivita asham, struggle for existence. Sadhyaha, directly. Chinnati is cut to pieces. Animishaya, by the eternal time. Namaha, my obeisances. Astu, let there be. Tasmai, unto him. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. People in general, all engaged in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts as eternal time. Purport. People in general are all engaged in senseless work. They are systematically unmindful of the real beneficial work, which is the devotional service of the Lord, technically called the Archan regulations. The Archana regulations are directly instructed by the Lord in the Narada Pancharatra and are strictly followed by the intelligent men who know well that the highest perfectional goal of life is to reach the Lord Vishnu, who is the root of the tree called the cosmic manifestation. Also, in the Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita, such regulative activities are clearly mentioned. Foolish people do not know that their self-interest is in realization of Vishnu. The Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 5th chapter, verse 30 to 32 says, Matirna Krishne paratak svato va mito vipadyeta griha vratanam adanta gobhir vishatam damishram punah punascharvita charvananam nate vidu svatagatim hi vishnum durashaya ye bahirattamanina andhayatandhay rupaniyamanas te pishatantriam urudam nibadha Naishammati stavadurukramangrim sprishatyanartabagamo yat artaha mahiya sampada rajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. Persons who are determined to totally rot in false material happiness cannot become Krishna-minded either by instructions from teachers, by self-realization, or by parliamentary discussions. They are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the chewed. Because of their foolish activities, they are unaware that the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve Vishnu, the Lord of the cosmic manifestation, and so their struggle for existence is in the wrong direction of material civilization, which is under the external energy. They are led by similar foolish persons, just as one blind man is led by another blind man, and both fall in the ditch. Such foolish men cannot be attracted towards the activities of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Powerful, who is actually the neutralizing measure for their foolish activities, unless and until they have the good sense to be guided by the great souls who are completely freed from material attachment. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asks everyone to give up all other occupational duties and absolutely engage in archana activities or in pleasing the Lord. But almost no one is attracted to such archana activity. Everyone is more or less attracted by activities which are conditions of rebellion against the Supreme Lord. The systems of jnana and yoga are also indirectly rebellious acts against the Lord. There is no auspicious activity except archana of the Lord. Jnana and yoga are sometimes accepted within the purview of archana when the ultimate aim is Vishnu and not otherwise. The conclusion is that only the devotees of the Lord are bona fide human beings eligible for salvation. Others are vainly struggling for existence without any actual benefit. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshushrun Militam Yanam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yanam Bhutale Swayamarupa Kadamayam Daratisha Padantikam. So, what's struck me in this purport specifically But before that, I will speak just a short message about who are we now listening to. This chapter is called Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. Yeah. And just that we know who is speaking in this verse, let's turn to the following verse, number 18, if I may, for just reading the verse number 18 of this chapter. You may maybe find this and put it on your screen. So in this verse, it is stated, Yasmad bibhem yaham apidviparadha dishyam adyasita sakaloka namaskritam yat te pe tapo bahusavo varutsamanas tasmai namo bhagavate dimakaya tubhyam. Your Lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you who are indefatigably time and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in the abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of 2 paradhas, although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respects unto you. So here, Lord Brahma is identifying his true identity. Yeah? And I would just like to mention this verse. In this verse, there's the word Viparadha Dishnyam. In the translation, it is written that Lord Brahma lasts for 2 paradhas. And just that we know the number, one one day of Brahma accounts for 4,300,000,000 times 2, that means 1 for night and 1 for day. So actually it is 8,600,000 years make 1 day and 1 night of Brahma, right? So then it's 30 for 1 month, 12 for 1 year, and 100 for 100 solar years. So just imagine, how long does Brahma live? It's absolutely phenomenal. The life of Brahma is absolutely phenomenal. So we have this book, which is called the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And we are reading something which was spoken by a personality who lives so many billions and billions and billions and billions of years. Actually, if I remember well, it's 311 trillion years, a lifetime of Brahma. And it's incredible that we are reading from a book where the narrator of this specific verses, Brahmaji, who is praying for the power of creating, is such a phenomenal personality. And at the same time, as we read in this verse number 18, he offers his obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he analyzes in a very succinct ways that people in general all engage in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. So in fact, Brahma is empowered to create, and we will read in this chapter and the next, how Brahma starts the creative process. But at the same time, he was enlightened, and we see in this verse about the reality that people in general, in Sanskrit it's called loka, and the verse goes, loka vikarma nirataha kushale pramataha. People in general all engage in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts, and this is a very, very important word, as eternal time. So we are living in this material world for such a short time. All lifespan as human beings in this Kali Yuga specifically amounts to 70, 80, at most 100 solar years. And here we have a personality who lives for 311 trillion solar years, speaking to us directly through his pure devotee, through the pure devotee of Krishna, who is the only one entitled to transmit these eternal messages to us, conditioned souls in this material world. But as we see in this verse, people in general all engage in foolish acts. Yeah. There's maybe at our lecture now in Hare Krishna Africa, if I may say, maybe 30, 40 participants, right? But if you go to the next cinema hall or the football match or some concert which is organized and paid for with great money, you will find 30,000, 40,000 people attending for nothing, as is stated here. Bikarma, work without sense. Yeah, bikarma actually means also, it's stated in the Bhagavad Gita, bikarma is a sinful act which shouldn't be done. From the spiritual point of view, is bikarma is not good. There's karma, bikarma, and of course we know as devotional service is called also naishkarma or akarma, activities which do not produce bad or good results, which are favorable for devotional service. But here, vikarma, Prabhupada defines in the synonyms as work without sense. So that's about all I wanted to say about Brahma and the honor that we have through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada to hear the opinions of a personality who lives 311 trillion years, whereas we, insignificant worms on this planet Earth, we live mostly about 70 or maybe 80 or 90 years. It's incredible, the mercy that we get from the Vaishnavas to hear such a wonderful narration. So that's about all I want to say about Brahma. Now, Prabhupada cites in the purport 3 verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, cited by Prahlad Maharaj. And it's interesting that these 3 verses were sung, as I also sang them a little bit, they were sung in a small house in 1970, or was it 1969 or even? Yeah, December 69, in London, in a small house in Tittenhurst estate of John Lennon. And Srila Prabhupada received in his little room. In Britain, they have very small houses with small windows and small ceilings and everything. And Srila Prabhupada was in his little room in this little servant's house next to the big chateau from John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And one morning, Yoko Ono, John Lennon, and George Harrison, the famous George Harrison and famous John Lennon with his friend Yoko Ono, visited Srila Prabhupada in his room. They went up the stairs, they sat down cross-legged in front of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said that the Vedic knowledge is also songs, because he knew he's speaking with famous musicians, famous pop stars, who are still today adored by millions of people. So he was speaking to them as musicians, and he said, the Vedic mantras are music. And then he chanted these 3 verses from the 7th chapter, from the 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam by Prahlad Maharaj. And he just sang them to the Beatles, and you can imagine John Lennon and George Harrison sitting there with their famous songs that they wrote, and Prabhupada sang to them these 3 mantras from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada also gives a small translation, which is not exactly the translation of the verses from the 7th canto. So with your permission, I have chosen to read these 3 verses and their purports directly from the 7th canto. I will simply read the Sanskrit and also the translation and purport. They're not very long, but they're very nice. So kindly listen. Shri Prahlad Uvacha Matirna Krishne Parataksvatova Mito Vipadyeta Grihavratanam Adanta Gobhir Vishatam Tamishram Punah Punascharvita Charvananam. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which was already being chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. It's interesting, Srila Prabhupada's translation of this verse is either by instruction from teachers, by self-realization, or by parliamentary discussions. This I like very much, because parliamentary discussions, usually they take place in parliaments in democratic countries, which we have everywhere, except for a few totalitarian countries. So it's interesting that Prabhupada states parliamentary discussions in his translation in this verse. But in the seventh canto, it's a little different, by combination of both. So purport. In this verse, the word Matirna Krishna refers to devotional service rendered to Krishna, which in this verse that we have today is called Archana. So-called politicians, erudite scholars, and philosophers who read Bhagavad Gita try to twist the meaning from it to suit their material purposes. But their misunderstandings of Krishna will not yield them any profit, because such politicians, philosophers, and scholars are interested in using Bhagavad Gita as a vehicle for adjusting things materially. Srila Prabhupada refers naturally here to Gandhi. For them, constant thought of Krishna or Krishna consciousness is impossible. Matirna Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Only through devotional service can one understand Krishna as he is. The so-called politicians and scholars think of Krishna as fictitious. That's what Gandhi once said. The politician says that his Krishna is different from the Krishna depicted in the Bhagavad Gita. Even though he accepts Krishna and Rama as the supreme, he thinks of Rama and Krishna as impersonal because he has no idea of service to Krishna. Thus, his only business is punah charvita charvananam, chewing the chewed again and again. The aim of such politicians and academic scholars is to enjoy this material world with their bodily senses. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that those who are griha vrata, whose only aim is to live comfortably with the body in the material world, cannot understand Krishna. The two expressions, griha vrata and charvita charvananam, indicate that a materialistic person tries to enjoy sense gratification in different bodily forms, life after life, but is still unsatisfied. In the name of personalism, the ism or that, this ism or that ism, such persons always remain attached to the materialistic way of life, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, verse 44, second chapter, Bhogaishvaram prasaktanam tyapahrita chetasam yavasayatmika buddhi samadhau na vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Those who are attached to material enjoyment cannot be fixed in devotional service to the Lord. They cannot understand Bhagavan Krishna or his instruction, Bhagavad Gita. Adanta govir vishatam tamishram. Their path actually leads towards the hellish life, as confirmed by Rishabdev. Mahat sevam dvaram ahyur vimukte. One must try to understand Krishna by serving a devotee. The word Mahat refers to devotees. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakriti ashitaha bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadi mavhyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. A Mahatma is one who is constantly engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. As explained in the following verses, unless one adheres to such a great personality, one cannot understand Krishna. Kashipu wanted to know where Prahlad had gotten this Krishna consciousness. Who had taught him? Prahlad sarcastically replied, "My dear father, persons like you never understand Krishna. One can understand Krishna only by serving a Mahat, a great soul. Those who try to adjust material conditions are said to be chewing the chewed. No one has been able to adjust material conditions, but life after life, generation after generation, people try and repeatedly fail. Unless one is properly trained by a Mahatma, or unallied devotee of the Lord, there is no possibility of one's understanding Krishna and his devotional service." And text number 31 of the fifth chapter, seventh canto. Nate bidu swarta gatim hi Vishnu durashayaye bahirattamanina andhayatandhaye upaniyamanas pepisha tantram urudam nibadha. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home, back to Godhead, and engaged in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. And I will make it a little shorter. The verse number 32. Naishammati stavadurukramangrim sprishatyanatta pagamo yadartha mahiya sampadarajo bhishekam ishkanchananam navrinita yavat. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way can one be freed from material contamination. I just quickly read the purport to this verse, which is very important. Becoming Krishna conscious brings about anartha apagamaha, the disappearance of all anarthas, the miserable conditions we have unnecessarily accepted. These are wonderful definitions of anarthas. The miserable conditions we have unnecessarily accepted. Wonderful. The material body is the basic principle of these unwanted, miserable conditions. Once again, the material body is the basic principle of these unwanted, miserable conditions. The entire Vedic civilization is meant to relieve one from these unwanted miseries. But persons bound by the laws of nature do not know the destinations of life. As described in the previous verse, Isha Tantriam Urudham Nibadha, they are conditioned by the three strong modes of material nature. The education that keeps the conditioned soul bound life after life is called materialistic education, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that materialistic education expands the influence of Maya. Such an education induces the conditioned soul to be increasingly attracted to materialistic life and to stray further and further away from liberation from unwanted miseries. One may ask, why highly educated persons do not take to Krishna consciousness? The reason is explained in this verse. Unless one takes shelter of a bona fide, fully Krishna conscious spiritual master, there is no chance of understanding Krishna. The educators, scholars, and big political leaders worshipped by millions of people cannot understand the goal of life and take to Krishna consciousness, for they have not accepted a bona fide spiritual master and the Vedas. Therefore, in the Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3, it is said, Nayamatma paravachanena labhyona medhayana bahuna shrutena. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, a PhD, or other titles, by presenting lectures in an erudite, pravachanena labhya, in a erudite way. This is also very nice. Or by or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I just remember the intelligent scientist who discovered many wonderful things. Stephen Hawkins, who became unfortunately lame, he was also something like that. One cannot understand Krishna unless one is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only one who has surrendered to a pure devotee of Krishna and taken the dust of his lotus feet can understand Krishna. First, one must understand how to get out of the clutches of Maya. The only means is to become Krishna conscious. And to become Krishna conscious, very easily one must take shelter of a realized soul, a Mahat or Mahatma, whose only interest is to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, as the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita. This is a very important information. Who is a real Mahatma? So here it is. Mahatma nastu mam parta daivim prakriti ashritaha bhajantyananya manaso jivat gyatva bhutadim avayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original, inexhaustible. Therefore, to end the unwanted miseries of life, one must become a devotee. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana, sarvai gunas tatra samasate suraha. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. And these are two verses which are from the Upanishads, Shvetasvatara Upanishad 6:23. Yasya deve para bhakti yata deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Yam evaishe vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vivrinuta tanum svam. The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Mundaka Upanishad 3:23. These are Vedic injunctions. One must take shelter of a self-realized spiritual master, not a materially educated scholar or politician. One must take shelter of a Nishkinchana, a person engaged in devotional service and free from material contamination. That is the way to return home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'm sorry if I read so much from Srila Prabhupada's books. It's maybe not the standard, because usually one requires the speaker to have his own realizations. Personally, I'm a foolish person, like is described here. Yeah, people in general all engage in foolish acts. It's a fact that I am a foolish person, and maybe I've served a little bit the mission of Srila Prabhupada and had the great, I would say, mercy of having association of great devotees who were disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Maybe you will be interested that I met His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami before he took sannyas as Ganesham Prabhu many times. And I worked with him a little bit in Geneva, in Switzerland, where I was in charge of dispatching books which Ganesham Prabhu and other devotees, members of the library party, made standing orders at various universities in Europe. So I was more or less like connected with them in the sense that I was dispatching packages of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gitas to various places in Europe. And I was really struck by the purity and this incredible faith that in those days Ganesham Prabhu and later Bhakti Tirtha Swami had in Srila Prabhupada, and specifically in his urgency of delivering the message. his ways of selling sets to people in Europe, I don't know so much in America, but I know in Europe, his ways were absolutely stunning. He would practically sleep. The devotees who were traveling with him were astounded. The energy and this, what is it called? Stamina, that's the word. The stamina which was in his personality, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And the way he approached professors and various responsible personalities at the universities in Europe, what I have read about it, were absolutely amazing. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he had this wonderful gift of appreciating and invoking what Yamuna Devi Dasi, my god sister, has qualified by the words Krishna magic. That's the word, Krishna magic. And uh, he had so many stories, he told me, this Krishna magic that he lived through when he was selling Srila Prabhupada's books to libraries in standing orders form, which is unfortunate today. Not many devotees are doing this job, selling standing orders to universities on a directly basis. Now, I've noticed that we have in America, mainly also in India, the system which is called Bhadra, where we give away the Bhagavatam for free to some rich life member, and this rich life member gives it further. So it's sort of like, he pays for it, and that's okay. But Bhakti Tirtha Prabhu Maharaj, he was able to go and directly get the money directly from these karmis, these foolish people uh, who are engaged in foolish acts, not in the, as it really written here, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. So I had great fortune having his association and seeing his devotion, his determination in those days before he accepted sannyas and later on became a spiritual master for so many of your devotees in Africa specifically and other places also, but mainly in Africa. Uh, the last time I mean, not the last time, but when I met him, uh, that was I was impressed. That was in London in 1977 in September. We were invited to come to London, where Srila Prabhupada was attending Janmashtami and his last and ultimate Vyasapuja celebration. And after that, he originally was thinking going to America to Gita Nagari and help them, assist them establishing Varnashrama. But unfortunately, or by Krishna's arrangement, um, he had to return to India, and a few months later, he left this material world. Anyhow, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, in those days, Ganesham Prabhu, he came also. And he was just there constantly serving everybody. He doing prasadam. He was the one serving out the prasadam to all the devotees. He didn't sleep. We knew that his sleeping was maybe 2 hours a day, a night, excuse me, 2, 3 hours a night. He was absolutely an amazing personality. And he was invited to visit Srila Prabhupada in his quarters in those days. And Srila Prabhupada, he laid his hand on Bhakti Tirtha or Ganesham Prabhu's head and he said, "Now your life is perfect." He was crying. Prabhupada was crying when he read, when the letters were written from this mission that he had in his standing orders. He loved, Srila Prabhupada loved Bhakti Tirtha in such a way. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, in those days, Ganesham Prabhu loved Srila Prabhupada more than we can imagine. So these are the Mahat, as is stated in this verse that we've just read, that Naisham Matistavat Urukramangri Sprishati Antaravago Yat Artaha Mahia Sampado Rajobhishekam Nishkinchananam Navritayavat. Yeah. So unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination. Speaking about material contamination, I remember Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, in those days, he was already Swami, I remember. he wrote a very nice offering, Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada, which stuck in my mind to this day. An incredible, fantastic offering. He wrote, maybe some of you disciples have read it, or I don't know. He wrote that, yes, I have such a beautiful temple. I have built so many nice temples. I have so many disciples. I am so learned. I have read the whole Bhagavatam 10 times. I have studied the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I have studied the Bhagavat, the Hari Bhakti Vilas. And then Bhakti Tirtha writes, Prabhupada, it's like he's taking the role of Prabhupada, asking question, how is everything doing? But Prabhupada would ask, did you get rid of sex life? And then, and I have been so many places, and I have so many successful things. I have so many titles. Did you overcome sex life? And like this, he goes on. And the whole conclusion of this is what we read here in this verse, that unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material accommodation, specifically completely freed from sex life. That was something which was so powerful in Srila Prabhupada's personality. Actually, Tamal Krishna Maharaj writes in his book also that once Prabhupada was coming back from an engagement, and they asked him, how is it possible? I think Tamal maybe even asked him, how is it possible, Srila Prabhupada, that so many people are worshiping you in India specifically? And Prabhupada said, because I overcome sex life. I actually don't have any sex desires, material desires, which is called here material contamination. Prabhupada was uncontaminated. So therefore, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who was very intelligent in this connection, detected sometimes, and that's where I like this offering, that, we may boast that, I'm such a learned person, I have so many qualifications, did you overcome sex life? Sex desire. Yeah, that's the test, right? So connecting to this verse that we have read today, it's stated, I read it again. People in general engage in foolish acts. Specifically, let's be direct. Foolish acts mainly relate to sex life. Not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance, which are here described by the word archana. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, the tendency for foolish work to work for maintaining a family, for getting a nice automobile, for paying the mortgage for the house that we have for the children, to finance the studies of our children. We may think that these are absolutely amazing activities, very important. But in fact, Brahma here clearly says that they are foolish works. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts as eternal time. And that's the fact, that eternal time, Krishna, when Arjuna asks him, who are you, when he shows him the universal form, the 11th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, he asks him, who are you? And what does Krishna says? I am time, the destroyer of the worlds. Eternal time. Yeah. It's a fact, like now I'm 72. Time has already taken 72 years of my life, of this material body. And I may cling to it as much as I want, but there will be a moment where eternal time will just make this material body, which I have now, disappear. Yeah. And everything related to this material body will disappear also. My car, my house, my family, my children, my etc., etc. Yeah. So this is foolish work. Therefore, Brahma is very intelligent. Of course, he's the most intelligent person in this creation. That's a fact. So anyhow, I would like to also read the at the last paragraph of this purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asks everyone to give up all other occupational duties and absolutely engage in archana activities or in pleasing the Lord. But almost no one is attracted to such archana activity. That's a fact. You know, how many Hare Krishnas are there in the world, except for India? India is a specific place because it's the tradition of Krishna consciousness is there, or archana is there. But throughout the world, I don't know, maybe 1 million. I'm very optimistic. Maybe 1 million devotees of Krishna who are attracted to archana activity. As I say, I'm very optimistic. Maybe I would say quite less than 1 million, maybe 500,000, maybe not even 250,000 people who are really attracted to archana activities. Yeah? But when there is the Super Bowl of football in America, there is, like, I think they counted 10 million people just watching one stupid game of football. Yeah. So almost no one, it's a fact, is attracted to such archana activity. Everyone is more or less attracted by activities which are conditions of rebellion against the Supreme Lord. Now, once again, this word rebellion. I remember Bhakti Tirtha Swami speaking at various events in Africa also, recordings of him, where he is so strong about the fact that we have rebelled against the Supreme Lord. Yeah, we are rebellious. It's a fact. The systems of jnana and yoga are also indirectly rebellious acts against the Lord. Yeah, because we try to find a loophole not to surrender to God, not to engage in archan, which means 24 hours. So jnana and yoga are also indirectly rebellious acts, like excuses. Oh, I know so much, and I've practiced so much austerities, and I've meditated for so long. But do you overcome sex life? That would Bhakti Tirtha would say. So there is no auspicious activity except archana of the Lord. It's a strong statement. There is no auspicious activity except archana of the Lord. Jnana and yoga are sometimes accepted within the purview of archana when the ultimate aim is Vishnu and not otherwise. The conclusion is that only the devotees of the Lord are bona fide human beings eligible for salvation. Now, this is a quite interesting formulation which Prabhupada writes here. The conclusion is that only the devotees of the Lord are bona fide human beings. Well, but the fact is, it's not that only devotees are bona fide human beings. Of course, the other people are also human beings, although two-legged animals also they're called. But the specific, I would say, form of the sentence is they're bona fide human beings eligible for salvation, which means that the devotees are the only human beings eligible for salvation. Salvation in the sense of returning back home, back to God, as we have read in the verse, I think, at the end of the purport. That's a very nice purport here. These are Vedic injunctions. One must take shelter of a self-realized spiritual master, not a materially educated scholar or politician. One must take shelter of a nishkinchana, a person engaged in devotional service and free from material contamination. That is the way to return home back to Godhead. So Prabhupada speaks about the actual aim of human life is to return back home, back to God. That's the advantage of this human form of life. So unfortunately, yeah, it is a fact that not many people, almost no one, Prabhupada writes it here, almost no one is attracted to such archana activities. So we are very fortunate that we have met devotees, that we are now online listening from wherever we are now in Africa, in the United States, and we are through the agency of the latest inventions of science, Zoom conferencing, we are able to read or listen to Srila Prabhupada's books and have the association of such a personality as Brahma, who lives 311 trillion years That's an amazing amount, you know. But the world is relative. For example, for the there's a small insect, I forget the name. In Czech, I know, and that insect lives only during the night. He gets born in the evening and he dies in the next morning. For him, or 100 years or 70 years or phenomenal. It's like trillions also. So this relative world, but still, we are in the presence through Prabhupada's mercy, his translations, purports. We are in the presence of a great personality, Lord Brahma, who's instructing us on the path of self-realization and of returning back home, back to Godhead. So I think I'll end here at this point from the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. I would like to add, I said once again, I like to read Prabhupada's books. I always love to read Prabhupada's books. I love his style. He is extremely, from the English diction and very powerful wordings and the beautiful logics and poetry of his explanations are wonderful. That's a fact. And also, let's face it, the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam are supreme poetry. They're much nicer and much more profound than poetry from people like William Blake or even Shakespeare, you know, or other poets who are sort of mental speculators. But these are very beautiful verses because they are melodious, they're music. As Prabhupada told John Lennon and George Harrison in London, this is music, you know. And the whole Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses of music, you know. That's a nice song, you know, a long song, 18,000 verses. Bhagavad Gita is a song. Bhagavad Gita means song, you know. So there we have 700 verses, a song with 700 verses. And it's so beautiful, so melodious. Loko vikarma niratah kushale pramatta karmanyaham tvadidite bhavat archane sve yastavadasya balavanta jivasam sadyaschinatyam yasham namostu tasmai. Isn't it beautiful? These are just absolutely beautiful. So I love Prabhupada's books. I like to read them. And I like to share my readings with others if I can, like on this wonderful platform you have. And here I would request anyone, if he has any questions, he can ask.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Jayagurudeva Prabhu. So beautiful hearing you speak. And dear devotees, please, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections, realizations you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or share your reflections. Shri Govindaji, our Garuda, please unmute and then go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Forgive me, Prabhu. I'm driving. I'm in the traffic right now, and so my question may be a little bit distorted, but I would like you to kindly expatiate this sounds like, it will sound in the ears of people with a little understanding about the deepest aspect of sex life or lusty desires. They attribute it to only one thing, like man and woman relationship. And everybody knows that Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, throughout his life in ISKCON, he has no such record. Neither has he attempted to do anything of that nature. And so people may misunderstand that this great Maharaj, Prabhupada was asking him, have you given up your sex life? It looks as if he was doing something like that. So I would like you to kindly explain it on this platform so that the people who may hear this lecture in future will get a better understanding of what it means when Prabhupada would have asked or has asked him, have you given up sex life? It's like someone say, have you given up your lusty desires? And those who are little, profound of understanding in that particular word would think that lust simple means lust for a woman or looking for a woman, attraction to a woman. But lust means so many things. So can you please expatiate on this very point? I'm very much concerned. So please help out.
How can I help out? I mean, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said it all, No, seriously. It's a fact that love of God is transformed into lust once one becomes contaminated by the lower modes of passion and ignorance. So if we associate with the lower forms of passion and ignorance, lower gunas, passion and ignorance, rajas, tamas, if we associate with these two modes, then the love of God, which was the most nectarine, ecstatic taste, which in the highest form is called prema, and which is dormant within the heart of every single living entity. But in contact with the mode of ignorance and passion, it becomes transformed into lust. So love, there's no love in this material world. It's all lust. And the real love, the only love, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also writes in his songs, is the love that a living entity has for Krishna. And one who wants to have this, one who has this love of Krishna, he doesn't have any lust in himself. That was the most amazing thing about Srila Prabhupada. As I said a few minutes ago, when Tamal Krishna asked him, how is it possible that so many people are worshiping you and surrendering to you, falling on their, straight just because I conquered sex life? Prabhupada said so. And he wasn't a eunuch, or he was an impotent personality. And your question is, if sex life is only related to women, of course not. It's also related for men. Sex life with men is called homosexuality. Sex life with women is heterosexuality, right? And sex life with children, the worst form of sex life you can imagine is pedophilia, right? So all these three forms of sex life, and there's many ways of subtle sex life also. There's the subtle sex desire of becoming famous, becoming worshipped by others. It's a sex desire also. So as long as one is in this material world connected with the mode of ignorance and passion, then he is obliged to have sex desire in whatever form it is possible. Either gross sex life, as we said, women, men, or children. The worst is children. It's the most obnoxious, right? Pedophilia. But all these sex desires, they're simply the product of the souls becoming forgetful of Krishna and becoming involved or influenced by the mode of ignorance and passion. As long as we are influenced by the mode of ignorance and passion, we cannot love Krishna spontaneously. We may engage in what is called sadhana bhakti, vaidhi bhakti, practice but that doesn't mean that we are freed from sex life. And therefore, we should be very humble in this connection. It's not easy to become free from sex life. And I've seen, personally, I was so impressed, and I once again repeated by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's personality. He actually was free from sex life. He didn't try to make a show of himself. He didn't want followers. What to speak of women or men. He was completely aloof from this. And therefore he was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. And why he became like this? Because he took the dust of Srila Prabhupada on his head. He wasn't a person who was just waiting for Prabhupada to leave this planet so that he can take his position and show off. You know, he just took Prabhupada's dust on his head, and his whole life was dedicated to the service of Srila Prabhupada. You know, and he had his from maybe I presume also from his past life. He was not an ordinary person. You know, many Prabhupada disciples. Not only Prabhupada disciples, but many devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement throughout the world, not only in India, very special personalities, not ordinary people. You know. It's a fact. So to make the answer short, as soon as we are in contact with the mode of ignorance and passion and become influenced by these two modes, then we develop lust. And lust means wanting to enjoy sex life with men, women, children, or to produce oneself as a very important personality, which is subtle sex or plan for sex. Brahmachari life is not easy. You know, there are not so many brahmacharis in our movement. So does this answer your question?
Oh, yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your elaborate explanation. At least we come to understand that sex life does not only pertain to man and woman relationship, but there's also other sex or other side of sex life. And as a spiritual practitioner, more especially to be Krishna conscious, one has to give up material desires. In other words, sex life means material desires or desire to enjoy material life. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Dr. Hassan, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please. Can you accept my special obeisances? All glory to Gurudeva, all glory to Prabhupada, and all glories to you, and all glories to wonderful Asanguni devotees.
Wait, Bhakta Hassan, you're also driving. You're also driving.
Yes. Yes. So, Maharaj, forgive me if I did not hear all the answer and the explanation because I'm being on and off. And His Grace Govinda, thank you for the question you asked because I was also very confused about the same question, the same explanation Maharaj gave. So Maharaj, my first question is that, so if somebody is gambling or somebody is not chanting his 16 rounds or somebody is intoxicating, that means that that means lust. That means that the past that means last two, or can you explain a little bit further for me to understand?
Well,
this is my first question, Maharaj.
So should I answer the first question first?
Yes, please.
Okay, so as far as the activities of sense gratification are described very clearly in our Shastras, and sinful life specifically, which Prabhupada describes as illicit sex life, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. You know, the four pillars of sinful life. So these activities are, I should say, natural for us who are foolish, materialistic people born in demonic families usually, or in families who are not very pious. And Prabhupada said that when he arrived in New York, and he first visited Boston and also saw the people in New York and saw how everybody's attracted by all these four sinful activities. He said, if I'll tell them that these four regulative principles, no illicit sex life, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling, and Prabhupada chuckled and he said, they will tell me, Swamiji, go home. And he wasn't very, actually, Srila Prabhupada wasn't very hopeful. You know, he at the very start when he lived in New York all alone, he wasn't very hopeful. He really didn't like, he didn't think that this will work. He tried his best, but for basically almost a year, nothing really happened. He even went to the port and looked if there's some boat leaving for India. He wasn't very. So anyhow, but when he initiated devotees after 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the movement blossomed like anything with thousands of devotees throughout mainly the Western world. Prabhupada was also concerned about the uh, capacity of his disciples to actually follow. And sometimes he was very much disturbed that his leaders didn't follow. The GBCs, they didn't follow. They didn't follow the regulative principle. They didn't chant their 16 rounds, which was mandatory at initiation, the vow. And he was very concerned. Prabhupada was sometimes. One devotee told me that Prabhupada said that to purify the Westerners is like washing coal. You know, you take a big piece of coal and you wash it in water. What can you purify coal? It will always be black. The more you wash the the, the more you wash coal, the more it becomes black. So so
Yeah.
so Prabhupada said that sometimes he has the feeling that his disciples are so contaminated that it's like washing coal; they will never get purified. He was very disturbed sometimes that his leaders just fell down, and it was going on. During Srila Prabhupada's presence, there was so many problems, and after his departure, there are also some problems going on, but I think personally that these are phases of development of the Krishna consciousness movement, which was founded by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a little more than 500 years now. And as far as I'm concerned, things will change over the time. We are the first ones with bad backgrounds, with backgrounds of very sinful or sinful families. So what can we do? I think that Krishna loves everyone. He maintains everyone. And if someone doesn't have the power to follow the four regulative principles or the time to chant 16 rounds a day, does that mean that Krishna will hate you? No, of course not. Krishna will love you always, despite your shortcomings. He loves even the animals, the trees, everything. His love is not partial. But the fact of the matter is that on the path of spiritual advancement, there might be so many stumbling blocks, mainly for us who are from our past lives and from this life. We're not very advanced. So, yeah, I mean, one should catch up. Also, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if one uh, is situated in devotional service, then despite his voluntary or involuntary sinful activities, he should be considered a sadhu. Because if he comes back always to the fact that, oh, I'm so foolish, he repents. I'm so foolish, I did this again. Oh, I'm so foolish, I forgot to chant my 16 rounds. I took so many vows, but I cannot follow the vows. I'm such a rascal. This in one sense is already a proof that one is still engaged in the process, right? And he's still like when you're under the shower, you're very dirty, you fell somewhere in mud. So as long as you're under the shower, washing off the mud from you, you're doing okay. You know? The problem is that when you think, "Oh, I won't wash myself anymore. I'll remain dirty for the rest of my life," that's a tragedy, you know. If you actually think of it just for 1 minute, just imagine. I've seen here in Prague and also in your place in America. I mean, come on, and in Africa also. Have you seen these men and women who never wash, who live in the streets and they look already like animals, act like animals. They look like human beings, but they're not anymore human beings. They don't wash. They're completely in the most of ignorance, you know. So as long as we keep ourselves underneath the shower of Krishna consciousness, despite the fact that we have some shortcomings, we should just continue to practice Krishna consciousness, have the association of devotees, and above all, as Maharaj said in your lecture, Dayananda Maharaj, don't make offenses against Vaishnavas. That's Hatimata.
Yes, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. I think the answers has answered my second question, so thank you. I will let
I
somebody.
answered the second also.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Jayagurudeva Prabhu, and beautiful questioners, Sri Govindaji and Bhattasan. Prabhuji, I have this question. I asked this question before on this very platform, and my senior god brother also seconded me because somebody had made the same expression to him before. And that is, Srila Prabhupada used to chastise people lots of the time. I have one very, very good friend. He likes all our books. He enjoys all our books. He likes our philosophy. But he just can't understand why Srila Prabhupada oftentimes insulted so many people. And for example, when Srila Prabhupada was speaking to Professor Kotovsky, Srila Prabhupada told him in his face that he's a rascal. And he least expected that to be coming from Srila Prabhupada, so he wasn't sure whether he heard Srila Prabhupada right. And Srila Prabhupada repeated himself and had actually spelled the word. It says rascaldom, you know. But we see most of the time these similar insults are not coming from Srila Prabhupada per se, but they're coming from the scriptures we are reading from. The references that Srila Prabhupada gave in this purport, where he quoted Canto 7, Chapter 5, Sri Prahlad speaking. Bhakta Prahlad was insulting. So in the verse, the opening sentence, Srila Prabhupada, I'm putting it back on the screen. Srila Prabhupada opened the purport by saying, people in general are all engaged in senseless work. Now, someone will ask, does that mean that if someone is not acting as Hare Krishna devotee, whatever work he's doing is senseless? That everybody should abandon everything and just become Hare Krishna devotee? So I would want you to please help explain what Srila Prabhupada means when he says that people in general are all engaged in senseless work. There are so many references where exalted devotees, previous acharyas, and even Krishna himself speaks like this sometimes. So if you may help, what does it mean when Srila Prabhupada is saying that people in general are all engaged in senseless work? Does that mean everybody should abandon whatever they're doing and become Hare Krishna devotee? Not doing anything, just preaching. What does it mean?
It's very simple, Prabhu. Prabhupada states that most of the people are engaged in senseless work, right?
Yeah.
So they should add some work which has some sense also to the senseless work. That's all.
Okay.
It's a very simple answer. Prabhupada didn't come to tell us that, you stop working. It was interesting. Prabhupada had a conversation once with the reporter from Associated Press on the 13th of August, 1976, if I know, something like that. 31st, anyhow, in June, sorry. Anyhow, in 1976, and there was this reporter who asked him, okay, so people are criticizing your movement, that you are separating yourself from the society. You just preach, you just chant Hare Krishna on the streets, you distribute your literatures, ask people for donations, uh, but you're not giving anything to the society in the sense of positive work, like, you don't work like others. And Prabhupada answered, because we are working on the spiritual platform. Whereas the people in general, they're working on the material platform. And Wei was trying then to explain to him what is the spiritual platform. And so the discussion went like this. Prabhupada said that the driver of the car is more important than the car. And this reporter didn't understand. He was like, "What? What do you mean? Why are you speaking about the driver?" So anyhow, at the end, finally, he understood that the spirit is the driver of the car. Without the spirit, the body is simply a piece of matter, a dead piece of matter. It has nothing to do. And he added, this reporter, it's a dead body is useless. It only can be like a fertilizer. So anyhow, the discussion went on and on and on. He was a very nice man, and he was sort of like, he said also at a certain point that in the recent newspapers there have been some allegations that your movement is brainwashing people. Yeah, that was 1976. We had court cases for brainwashing, and anyhow, and Srila Prabhupada said, no, we are working on a different platform. We have a different, I would say, activity, a different engagement, different purpose. So then at the end of the discussion, it was interesting. The reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, so does it mean that everybody should simply, I'm following your logics, that everybody should simply lay down his hammer? Prabhupada stated that when people are in prison, they have to, one of the activities that they have to do obligatory when they're in prison, some work, which means specifically breaking bricks, breaking stones or bricks. They do this also in Africa. The prisoners have to go to some quarry, etc. So this reporter asked him, so does it mean that the man who is now breaking the bricks, that he should give up his hammer and stop hammering the bricks? And Prabhupada said, no, he should go on with his work, whatever, but he should add some spiritual dimension, some sense, some work which has some specific sense for him, right? You just add it, That's one thing. The other thing is, and that is, I'm referring to the doubts that your friend has towards Srila Prabhupada being, I would say, sharp in his statements, in his judgments, sometimes in his writing, sometimes in his speaking with some specific people. If Prabhupada was heavy with somebody, then it was his close disciples. There he was like, like sometimes really, really heavy with them, very strict. But what I mean to say is that, anyhow, Prabhupada, he was a person who had a mission. He had a mission to make spiritual life available to people who didn't know anything about spiritual life. So sometimes his words were quite blunt, as we may say in English, and those who were attached, Matirna Krishna Paratak Satoha Mitovi Padyate Griha Vratanam. If you're a Griha Vrata, that means you have taken the vow that you want to stay in this material world. And if somebody says to you, you made this vow, you're an idiot. You become offended because I've made my vow, I want to stay here, and you telling me I'm an idiot? So, but this kind of speech for some people is absolutely fantastic. Finally, somebody told me, when I read Prabhupada's books for the first time, finally somebody told me that there is some other purpose in life than this hammering the bricks, So I pondered on this. I went on. I must say, I was also breaking bricks. I mean, I wasn't in prison. Thanks God. But I worked. I was 8 years a primary teacher at the primary school here. And for 15 years, I worked at the university here. I was in charge of the international students, exchange students, and various programs. I was in charge also of mobility of the staff and the faculty. I had a lot of responsibility, and I had to manage a lot of money also. But nonetheless, now I'm retired by Krishna's grace. I have other activities which are more meaningful. But what I mean to say, I never gave up on the fact that Prabhupada was like a awakening call. Like, if you want to wake up somebody, sometimes you have to really make some noise. And the soul, which is sleeping within all of us, sometimes needs a awakening call. And Prabhupada's call was sometimes very strong. Now, you can wake a man who is sleeping by making a noise, but you cannot wake a man who is pretending to sleep. It's impossible. So if we are pretending to sleep, then we say, why is this man yelling at me? Why is he trying to wake me up? I'm not sleeping, So that is unfortunate situation. And Srila Prabhupada wasn't concerned too much with the people who were pretending that they slept or they were sleeping. The fact of the matter is Krishna consciousness wasn't and still isn't for everyone. And what can we do? There are few people who are millionaires. There's not everybody is a millionaire, and few people have taken Krishna consciousness seriously. Does it mean that it's bad? Does it mean that the millionaire should give up his millions because he's only a part of an elite? Does a devotee have to give up his spiritual path just because, he is in a company of a few hundreds or 100,000 or whatever, But one should choose his company. That's important. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, he clearly says, Asat Sangha Tyaga. You should give up the association of Asat, of people who are materialistic. You shouldn't associate with materialists. If we associate too many with materialists, then we'll be influenced by lust, by ignorance and passion. We would like to make the money. One Srila Prabhupada said, if a sannyasi looks at a nice car and thinks, oh, this is a nice car, he shouldn't even think of sannyas. If he thinks, oh, this is a nice woman, he should immediately give up his sannyas. These are activities which belong to the mode of passion, ignorance. But if one is callous to these things, then that is very rare. Mahatmanas tumam partha. We have just read this verse. you know, that Daivi Prakritim Ashita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchit jatati siddhaya jatatam api siddhanam kashtit mam beti tattva. There's just not so many. But that doesn't mean that we condemn people, that Prabhupada didn't condemn people, but Prabhupada was sharp in his statements because he was on a different platform. He was on the spiritual platform. He was addressing the soul, not the body. That reporter from the Associated Press at the end, he more or less understood it, but he still didn't understand. But he was courteous, and I think Prabhupada gave him his mercy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the answer. We would like to formally recognize His Holiness Kavichandra Swami Maharaj. His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj is here. Jayagurudeva Prabhu. Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Is it possible to unmute?
Yeah, Haribol. But
Hare
I wanted to listen. I don't want to talk. Okay? I want to hear.
Oh.
That's why I tuned in.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
What time is it in Africa now?
It must be 4:30 in Ghana.
In the afternoon.
Yeah, in the afternoon.
Okay, good.
It's 6:30 here in Central Europe.
So 2 hours difference from Ghana, yeah.
6:30 in the evening, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, carry on. It's very interesting. I love your talks.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
I'm coming to Germany next week.
Okay, why don't you
I'm
drop
running.
by in our Czech Yatra? We'll be happy to see you. You have never been here.
Where is it?
The Prague Center, which is called in the Czech Republic. Bhaktivinoda Maharaj is the GBC here. He is presently here in Prague. He stays usually a few months here. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kadamba
he's here.
Kamaraj loved it.
Oh yeah, Kadamba Kanala. Tomorrow we have Ratha Yatra in Brno, which is in a township not too far away from Vienna. So I'm going tomorrow to this beautiful Ratha Yatra in Brno. And at the end of June we have another Ratha Yatra in Prague this time. Prague is a wonderful Harinam place because there's no limit.
Yeah, it's the best in the world. I'll try to come for the Rath Yatra then.
Wow. 29th of make it 29th, I think, or no, sorry, 26th of June.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in Europe anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, you're most welcome. We'll arrange everything for you. And I will always glorify your Sankirtan activities.
Well, there's not much, but
well, come on, you have been, in where I think you were in the Sankirtan party of Tamal Krishna Maharaj or of Vishnu Jan Swami.
Both. They were together.
You were together with both of them, huh?
For a while. I mean, that was the Radha Damodar party.
Yeah, Radha Damodar party.
They were the boss.
Did you also go with to the airport, Ohar?
Yeah, I was the leader there for a while.
Oh, you see. Yeah.
Back in the heyday.
Yeah.
Oh, Hare.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were no. Yeah, I mean, I was always very impressed by your Sankirtan.
That was a big time. We had like 25 devotees out there every day.
Yeah.
No,
those were different days.
Now it's different. Now it's a shopping center with the airport attached, and they don't like having us around. All right, so go on with the questions and answers, all right?
If there are some.
They're always there.
Yeah, I think Shima Vara Prabhu, do you still have something to ask? Yes, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to the Prabhupada. All glory to your service. Thank you very much. I particularly love your answer to the last question. Your last statement that Srila Prabhupada was actually on another platform. And so how he sees things is different. And I think this is not limited to Prabhupada. If you read Jesus Christ's statements in the Bible, you will also think it's actually full of insults to people. He called the Pharisees walking sepulchres, walking decorated tombs. What insult is more than that? Say that you're whitewashed tombs, and he said they are deaf and dumb. They have eyes they cannot see. They have ears they cannot hear. They will never understand. So in most places, Jesus Christ spoke very harshly also. So now, I mean, nobody ever thought that he was insulting people. But then at one point, he caused the fig tree to die. And then the explanation was, why will he do such a thing? And the explanation was also that it was on another platform. It wasn't actually in he asked the fig tree to give fruits, and it was not the season, and it caused it to die. And people were thinking, how could he do such a thing? But the answer given also was that it's not on the same on the material platform. It was seen on another platform. He was actually seeing the Kalpa Vriksha trees in the spiritual world, and he was expecting that it could give fruit anytime. And since the tree was not responding like Kalpa Vriksha, is better we die. So I think most pure devotees who another transcendental platform, maybe they're simply controlling themselves. If they have to really speak to us the way we are, we will bury our head in we will be very much ashamed. So thank you very much for that explanation. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
So I will just add to your nice comment. Because Maharaj is also attending, I had a very nice experience when I was distributing books, specifically sets of Prabhupada's books, Bhagavatam, in Austria. I used to go and distribute complete sets in towns. And I specifically concentrated also because Austria is a Catholic country. I specifically concentrated on giving Prabhupada sets or his books into monastery because they have Catholic monasteries. They usually have monks mostly monks. I went to men's cloisters. They have very nice libraries, and they are theologians. They read the Bible. They are surrendering their life to Christ and to his message and practicing spiritual life very seriously. Some of them even are vegetarian to this day, and they're very pious people. Prabhupada was very admirer of these monks. Mainly, he was in Melbourne at this Catholic monastery of the Franciscans, where he was received warmly and accepted. So anyhow, I came to this monastery of the Benedictines in the southern part of Austria, and I asked at the reception if I can see the abbot of this monastery and give him I have a book for him. So they introduced me to the abbot, and he was a very nice gentleman, very pious personality. His name was Platcidus, I still remember his name. And he bought the Bhagavad Gita, he gave a nice donation, and he invited me for lunch. I was in my brahmachari attire. I was a brahmachari in those days. And I was thinking, what should I do? Anyhow, I couldn't refuse. So he invited me for lunch, and there was this huge refectory. We were all sitting around the table with the monks, and some other monk was reading from a book. I don't remember which. And I sat next to the abbot. And they served us some salad, some potatoes, and a sausage. So, of course, out of politeness, I took a little bit of the salad and a little bit of the potatoes and didn't touch the sausage. And the abbot looked at me and said, "Oh, you don't eat meat?" And I said, "No, I'm vegetarian." He said, "Oh, that's good. We used to be vegetarian also." So anyhow, it was a very nice encounter. So I left, and a year later, we went there with a Sankirtan party in the region distributing books on the streets, parking lots, door to door, whatever. And I went to this monastery to ask if eventually we could stay at their guest house with the Sankirtan devotees. And they didn't have anything against it. They gave us a room and we slept in one room, some devotees on the floor, some devotees in the bed. And the next morning, we were chanting our rounds in the garden of the monastery, and the monks were chanting their rosaries. We were walking around, and they were walking around. They were chanting their rosaries, and we were chanting our japa. And one of the monks came up to me and said, the abbot would like to speak with you. I said, what? Yeah, he should go there immediately. I thought, oh boy, he's going to throw me out. He'll say we don't want a Hindu proselytizing here in our Catholic Austria. So anyhow, I said, well, I'll go there, and knocked at the door. He said, come in. So I went in, and then the abbot was sitting there behind his desk, and he looked at me and said, please close the door. I closed the door. I thought maybe he's going to blast me now, and how dare I, blah, blah, blah. And to my astonishment, he looked at me and said, that book you gave me last year, this Bhagavad Gita? It was one of the most interesting books of spiritual understanding that I've ever read. I said, wow, that's very nice. And then he looked at me and said, do you have other books like this? So I said, yeah, of course. So I ran to my van, and I took out the first 4 cantos. In those days, we didn't have still the complete set. And I brought them, and he gave a very nice donation for the first, second, third, fourth canto. And he said, but don't tell anybody that I like to read these books. So anyhow, that was a very nice experience. And year after year, I visited the monastery and gave him the 5th canto, 6th canto, 7th canto, up to the 8th canto. And then, unfortunately, a year later, he passed away, and I couldn't completely give him the whole set. So I went there again, and there was a new abbot, and he was quite different. He was very, I would say, reserved. No, we don't want these books. We're Catholics. We don't read these scriptures. I said, but your predecessor, he loved these books. He said, yeah, he might have loved it, but I'm not interested. And somehow or other, Prabhupada gave me the inspiration. And I told the man, but these books are signs of God. You can learn so many things about God that you don't find in the Bible. They're very, very scientific books of the science of God. And, we've read these verses today by Brahma, when you think of it, Brahma, 311 trillion years of age, he lived such a long time, and his instructions were there right in the Bhagavatams. Anyhow, I didn't tell him that. So I told him, well, these are books about God, the science of God, and you're not interested in the science of God. How do you expect that your parish, the people from your thing will be interested in God when you're not interested in God? He looked at me and said, give me the books. And he bought the whole set in the 9th, 10th canto. Anyhow, this is just so much one of the, leelas that I've lived through book distribution in Austria and other places. So that's what I mean to say is that people who are religious, who are pious, who are real devotees of God, they always appreciate Prabhupada's books. If they're envious and jealous, then what can we do, Prabhupada once said that he had a friend, before he came to America, he had a friend in Calcutta, and he was a tenant of Prabhupada's house. He was Muslim. And Prabhupada said, oh, we found this Bhagavad Gita. He said, can I sell it? And this Muslim said, no, this is my Bhagavad Gita, my personal, no, I love this book. So even if he was a Muslim. And I think we have, Kavi Chandra Maharaj, maybe you can help me. We have a godbrother who's a mufti in New York. He's a Muslim preacher. Is it?
I don't know. I haven't heard of it, but
Yeah, I've seen an interview with him. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And because he joined, he was initially in the Islamic faith. He became a Islamist, but at the same time, he's a devotee. He told in this interview with Siddhanta, he made an interview with Siddhanta, I forgot his name, and he said he was also from the Black community of the United States. I think he was in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah,
Remember him? Yeah.
The
so
one
anyhow,
is a martial artist or something.
No. He's a Muslim. He actually leads a Muslim church in New York.
No, I don't know.
He's an amazing personality. And he said that his father, when he heard that he's associating with the Krishnas, his father became very disturbed. And this, my god brother, he told me, but you know, their God is black. And when his father heard that, he said, wow, that's the first time I heard that somebody knows that God is black. So the whole family of this devotee, they came to the temple to see the deity of Krishna, who is black.
You're right. I know that.
You know that story?
Yeah.
That's an amazing.
I didn't know he had a Muslim church. I thought he's.
Yeah, he invited his other Muslims and he wanted to preach to them, and they were very disturbed that he wants to preach to them about Bhagavad Gita. And then he defeated them philosophically soundly. Of course, New York is New York, come on. It's not a normal place like Arabia or thing. You can have so many varieties of churches there and mosques, which are there's a variety in New York. So I think he's one of these variety. I don't know, maybe he's not anymore, but he was definitely a Muslim.
Definitely was, yeah. That's good.
An amazing story.
One of your god sisters, Mother Krishna Nandini, who is no more here with us, but her husband is a Muslim, but he's also a Krishna devotee, and he plays a very important role in, especially the ISKCON Grihastha
ministry. Yeah.
We have no problems with other people who are of other faiths. On the contrary, we are appreciative. Prabhupada said he didn't want us to become, to convert us into Hindus. He said he wants to make us better Christians. So sometimes when I met people who are hostile and telling me, we're Christians, and I told them, but who gives you the right to tell me that I'm not a Christian? I may be a better Christian than you do because I don't eat meat. Lord Jesus Christ said, thou shalt not kill. It's right there in the 10th commandment. Do you eat meat? Yeah. But I don't eat meat, so maybe I'm a little better than you. But maybe not. Of course, I wouldn't dare to be puffed up thinking like that. But who dares to tell me that I'm not a Christian? Of course I'm a Christian. I was baptized, by the way.
Yeah.
I never gave up my faith in Lord Jesus Christ. Prabhupada said he's our guru. And I accepted he's our guru.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Hari Chakra Prabhu, please give me on mute. I think Sri Prabhupada also said Lord Jesus Christ was a Vaishnava. Yes. Hari Chakra Prabhu, please give me on mute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for the in-depth message that you've given us.
Is that another driver?
No.
No, I'm not driving. I'm sitting at one place.
Oh,
yeah. So something to add up to what do we call Shima Varaya Prabhu said about the answer you gave. We know Prabhupada sometimes. Prabhupada is a pure devotee. So sometimes he can say the most, like something completely out of the way, and it has the positive effect because he had the right consciousness. Unlike us, sometimes we will say something and because of our level of consciousness, it doesn't get the equal effect. I remember in 1984, we had a Gurukula, a Gurukul in the Accra temple, and then every Saturday they used to go on Harinam, just the Gurukulas. There will be only one senior devotee who will be with them, but he doesn't even do anything. He just makes sure they don't get into trouble. But these Gurukulas, they will do the Harinam and they will preach. So one time at this one Harinam, they were dancing and chanting, and this guy came and he said, hey, and the guy happened to be a lawyer. Look at you this little kiss. Huh? You are wearing these bed sheets and you are shaving your hair with this stuff behind you. What's wrong with you? You need to be saved. Jesus will save you. And these little boys, the senior devotee didn't interrupt. He was just looking on what the boys would do. And one of the boys called Isaac, a boy of 8 years, he came forward to face this man and he said, look, Prabhujis, don't let us waste time on this ignorant man. There is nothing that we can tell him that he will understand. He's so ignorant. And so he said, Prabhu, continue with the Harinam. So they started chanting. And the man was so disturbed that how can an 8-year-old boy call me ignorant? I'm a lawyer. So the very next day, Sunday, he traced the temple and came to the temple. Because he wanted to know what that little boy knows that he doesn't know, for that little boy to call him publicly as ignorant. And when he came, he waited for the Sunday feast class. And the person who was giving the class, his name was Jiva Goswami. And that Jiva also, he knew a lot. I mean, he was very good with the philosophy and his presentation. And after the Sunday feast class and the questions the guy asked and the answers he got, the guy himself said, look, I'm here because of some insults I received from one of your little boys. Because I wanted to know what he knows that I don't know. That little boy called me ignorant. But now that I came here, I really now understand why he called me ignorant. So this man straight away went to the Govinda shop and bought him a whole lot of proper books to take with him. So, like you said, sometimes some harsh words, it works sometimes, but I think depending on the heart, the heart and the intention with which the person says it. If you so sometimes Krishna let some devotees use certain words, but Prabhupada, we know we cannot compare ourselves to Prabhupada. Prabhupada can say anything and get away with it because his consciousness is purely behind the saying that they say. So thank you very much for the answer you gave. And
thank you for this wonderful story. Absolutely amazing. It's really nice. I'll remember this one. This is a really nice story, showing the purity of this Hare Krishna movement, how it acts on people who are intelligent. The man was definitely very intelligent. He wasn't a fool.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. See, Prabhuji, I say this to few devotees, that some devotees are like a gulab jamun, you know. They are so sweet, whichever part you bite on is so sweet. We would love to hold you here forever. But I have one last question. I mean, you're talking about His Holiness Kavichandra Swami Maharaj, who was and still is very much into book distribution. And book distribution is so dear to Srila Prabhupada. Most of us, if not all of us, are here today as devotees because of Srila Prabhupada's books. Now, in today's world, lots of people, those who are not like old school, are not very much used to reading books in black and white. They like digital books. Of course, there is also a documentary that reading digital books does not help retention as much as black and white. Now, the question I have is, with the changes going on in this world, almost everything moving to digital, what is going to be the mode of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books if most of them become digital, not hardbound copies? What do we do? Hare Krishna.
Well, I understand the importance of digital books, of ebooks. Yeah, but still, and I wouldn't be so pessimistic, printed books, printed literature is still very, very much appreciated by everyone in the whole world. Because looking at a book which is powered by batteries is one thing. And a printed book, you don't need batteries. And that makes a difference, you know. You just open the book and read for how many hours you want, for weeks and months and years, and you don't have to change the batteries. So we're living in a world which is run on batteries, on electricity. And it has an advantage, definitely. For example, our Zoom conference today or other lectures that we can follow or listen to Prabhupada's books on various platforms and his lectures. Everything is now available. It's incredible. The fact of the matter is that the internet has opened up a whole different, I would say, dimension of reality for us. But still, the advantage of printed literature, books, is there. And as I said before, the whole advantage is, and people know it intuitively, not maybe explicitly assigning to it, but implicitly they know, well, a book doesn't need batteries. I mean, seriously, come on. You know, a book doesn't need batteries. You can just open a book wherever you want. And plus that, reading books, I've noticed, except in the Veda base, I find it extremely useful for lectures like we had today. Very useful because you can jump from one book to another with a click of your mouse, you know, and you can read the purports from different scriptures very easily, simultaneously. There are definitely advantages, but still, the printed book has the advantage that it's so much close to us who are not working on batteries. You know, I'm a human being and I don't need batteries for living. But all these other items which are surrounding us, mobile phones and internet and computers and watches, etc., etc., they all need batteries. I don't need batteries. And a book doesn't need batteries either. So we're sort of good friends as far as I'm concerned. We're more close to each other. A book is closer to me as a human being because it's an object which doesn't need batteries. And we are living in a civilization which has become extremely dependent on batteries. Even now, cars are powered by batteries, and you name it. You know, it's a world. We need batteries. The more we advance in our civilizations, the more powerful batteries we need. You know, and batteries are at a certain point after I don't know how many thousand cycles or things, you can either renovate them or throw them away and pollute the planet, you know. I mean, come on, you know, books are still something very profound. And I think intuitively, as I said before, people do understand it. So therefore you have bookstores everywhere. You have everywhere bookstores. At airports you have bookstores. In every city you have beautiful bookstores. I think the people are still into books, and nowadays we have also, I don't know if your country is the same, but we have here people who are now installing, they called book book booths, which means that people who have read some book, they put it into a small box, a booth, like a telephone booth, and you can take it and you can bring your own. And this way, I have found very interesting books like this in these booths. I've read them and I gave them back into the booth. So still, books are very much in vogue, and they will remain so unless something happens. I don't know, but I think that they're still most important.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji.
What about Kavichand Maharaj? What do you say?
Well, fact is, book sales are way up the last couple of years. for not only for ISKCON, but for book shops. But the books, can be there when all this technology breaks down. So it's very important to have them distributed widely everywhere, because any time could be that can't access the internet or something.
Yeah.
Something can happen.
Yeah.
And they carry some sort of special power.
They don't work on batteries.
Yeah, I thought I was going to ask that question because we've heard so many stories where people just by touching the printed books have so much instant positive reaction. And I doubt if one may have such same positive reaction by using the ebooks. I don't know. But the physical book, like I was saying, it has been a study done that states that reading printed books help with retention of the content of the book and reading the digital, even though it's the same content, but the printed one helps with retention. So,
definitely.
well, thank you all. And without further questions and contributions, I think we've been here for 2 hours. I at least realized we've been here for 2 hours because the food was so sweet. We're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute themselves, and we all joyfully chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our deepest appreciation to our revered uncle and great uncle, His Grace Jayagurudev, for sharing his love and wisdom with us today. Please, you may all unmute. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama
Hare.
Rama, Hare Hare.
Sarubhyacha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Janam Parvanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha.
Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha.
What?
Krishna, Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
For the
Jai.
light.
His Grace Jayagurudev Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai.
His Holiness Kavichandra Swami
Pretty,
Maharaj Jai.
Jai.
And
Jai.
Vaishnava Vaishnava Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all.